Welcome to the final portion, part 3, of differentiated instruction. We're going to finish by looking at some general advice. So this is advice that I was trying to come up with things that would go across almost any grade level, since you all will be teaching anywhere from pre-K to 12th grade, as well as different subjects. So general advice. Start with, try to use more divergent questions. Now, you might recall that when we went over higher level thinking skills, divergent questions are open-ended, where there's more than one possible answer. That really allows for a range of interests, abilities, skills. Those sorts of assignments will be helpful when it comes to a differentiated learning classroom. Remember that with divergent thinking, it's the idea that you start with a stimulus, an idea like mythical creatures. And from there are so many different ways you can go. Whereas convergent thinking is, what is the name of the mythical creature that has wings in the body of a horse? There's one answer. That answer is Pegasus, and you're done. So again, divergent leaves more room for growth and for interesting avenues of learning. Consider using peer mentoring. Peer mentoring can be great because your more advanced student who serves as the mentor will learn from mentoring. You always learn more from teaching someone than acting as the student. So that will benefit them and stretch them. And the student who needs that scaffolding or assistance can benefit from working with that more knowledgeable other. Be prepared for your early finishers because, again, if you have a range of abilities, those students on the higher end who might be working more quickly are going to get done. So consider having bell ringers, other kinds of activities, things that they can do that are challenging and interesting when they're finished. There are all sorts of ideas for this. If you want to look online, look on Pinterest, look on Teachers Pay Teachers. Here's one example called the Job Jar or the I'm Done Jar. And you can see when you're finished, you go grab a slip and there's an activity for you to do. But that's just one example of about 100 different ways you can handle that. Something else you want to do is make sure you give very, very clear instructions, because if your students are working in groups, or if they're working in stations, you may not be right there to answer their question. You need to have instructions that are clear enough that they can read it on their own and understand it on their own. And plan ahead for noise levels, because if they are going to be in these flexible groups or in stations, they're going to be talking, there's going to be noise. Plan ahead. Tell them what is expected, what is acceptable, and set some way of monitoring that throughout the class period. And there are visuals you could also put up around your classroom if that's helpful. But you don't want to be constantly shushing your students and spending your day doing that. Plan ahead, figure out how you can prevent and monitor that. And plan for how your students are going to get help while you're busy. Because if you have students who are working at different stations and a variety of students who need help, how are you going to be in 3 places at once? So whether you want to have a system for them to perhaps assign someone to be the expert of the day, similar to being the teacher's helper, and they could be someone who could go around and help you with questions. I like these ideas of these kind of cards that students can use to visually let the teacher know if they're okay or whether or not they might need some help. Also, plan on how students are going to turn in their work. What are they going to do whenever it's time for them to submit their work? You don't want all of them walking up to you and handing things in to you. You want this to be done in an organized way that will also help you with grading. And again, you can look on Pinterest and other great places for ideas on how they're going to turn in their work in a way that, again, is going to be simple for them to understand and help you when it comes to organizing and grading. So before we wrap up this topic, a couple of final thoughts. Differentiated instruction might sound like a new term, but it's not a new concept. Think back to some of the earliest schools in America, the one-room schoolhouse, where students would be in one classroom of all grades, and the teacher would be working with 3rd grade students simultaneously with 11th grade students. That required a lot of differentiated instruction. It is also something you see in some schools today. One of the schools that I've worked with in my hometown does grade clustering. So for instance, 3rd and 4th grade are in one room. 5th and 6th grade are in another room, and so on. And so the teacher having 2 grades in one classroom is forced to differentiate math, language arts, and so on. One of the things that they've done at this school that I think is quite smart is the class schedule is the same for all grades. For instance, math, everyone does math, let's say from 10 to 10:45. That way, if you're in 2nd grade, but you really need 1st grade math, you can take 1st grade math because they're doing it at the same time. Or perhaps you need 4th grade math. They're doing math at the same time too, so the students can actually physically move around because the teachers are doing the subjects at the same time of day, and they can take the subject based upon the grade level that they should be in, or the ability level that they have. So again, just food for thought. But that is all for differentiated instruction. Thank you for your attention, and goodbye. Sarah, you want to say bye?
Bye!